Hello everyone, so I will be doing my March wrap-up for the month of March. I read 5 books, so let's get started. The first book I read was Bridge of Souls by Victoria Schwab. This is the 3rd book in the Cassidy Blake series. For those who don't know the series, it is about a girl, Cassidy Blake, who can see the dead, and her job is to send the spirits permanently beyond the veil. And her parents film a TV series about the most haunted cities, and so each book takes place in a different city, and she meets different ghosts and things like that. So this one takes place in New Orleans, and this time the Servant of Death comes after her. I gave this a 4-star rating. This series doesn't disappoint. It is a middle grade series, so it is nothing really spectacular, but it is a very fun read. I really like the characters. I love Cassidy and her relationship with her best friend who is a ghost. So if you just want to read like a fun series, I would suggest this series. It's so fun and cute. The second book I read was Valentine by Elizabeth Wentmore. This is a historical fiction novel, and it takes place in the 70s in Texas. So the morning after Valentine's Day, 14-year-old Gloria Ramirez knocks on the door of Mary, and she tells her that she has been raped and brutally attacked. This book was a really hard book to read. It left me heartbroken and very angry. So if any of the subjects of rape or a woman being attacked triggers you, do not read this book. It is a very important read, but it is very hard to read. And I think one of the reasons is that it seems so real, like you're reading a true story, and you can believe that all this would take place. So this takes place in a very small town, and so everyone knew the attacker. Basically, the whole town turns against the victim and Mary, the one who found the girl. So they called Gloria racial slurs. They called her a slut. They said that she deserved it, that she went with him willingly, so she's just a slut that deserved it. And they call Mary, who helped her and is going to testify against him, they call her a race traitor. They threaten her. So what I like about this book is that it's told through many perspectives, and some of them don't seem like they're related to the story with Gloria, but everything kind of like ties in some way, because everyone is basically affected by what happened. Even if it's like small, it was still has to do with like what happened. So it does open with Gloria's perspective of what happened, and then it moves on to Mary, and there's a bunch of other characters that you learn about. However, wish that we learned more about Gloria, like there was more about Gloria's perspective, because it was only in the beginning, and then it was like more of like what happened through the town and things like affected by this case, but we don't really know about Gloria. Like we do a little bit, but I just wish there was more. So as much as I hated this book, I gave it a 4-star rating, and that is because it made me feel. It impacted me. Like, I hated it because of how real it was and how awful these people are. And it's very reminiscent about what happens today, and I think that's why I hated it so much. But I also knew that it was an important read, and if this topic doesn't trigger you, I encourage everyone to read this book. The 3rd book I read was When They Call You a Terrorist, a Black Lives Matter memoir by Patrice. Khan-cullors. This is a non-fiction memoir about what it's like to be a black woman in America. Since she was little, she experienced firsthand the prejudice and persecution Black Americans endure at the hands of law enforcement. Since she was young, she experienced racial profiling. She would just be walking down the street with her brothers, doing nothing, and cops would just like push them against the wall because they were like, oh, they must have drugs on them, and we'll get to collar them and take them away. So she experienced it since she was young, and then had friends and family deal with the same experience. And in 2013, when Trayvon Martin's killer went free, that was kind of like the last straw And so her and Alicia Garza and Opal Tumiti, I'm so sorry, I probably butchered those names, they formed Black Lives Matter. So I gave this a 4-star rating, and again, this is a very important read. I think everyone should read this book. I thought this was just going to be about like how she formed Black Lives Matter, but it's so much more because it follows the life of Patrice and how we see all the racism she's been through and kind of like shaped who she was and why she formed Black Lives Matter. Like, her brother was victim to police brutality, and she saw the difference between how black students and white students were treated, because she went to a high school that had like white kids, and so she saw that there was no metal detectors, or no one really went after them for drugs, even though she saw them use and sell drugs so much. But her friends and neighborhood people, they were always targets of drug raids and stuff. And so then in 2013, it was kind of like she couldn't stand it anymore. And then you saw the backlash that they still get today, when basically all they wanted was for the police to stop killing black people. And they were seen as like a terrorist group, which, this still goes on today. Look at fucking George Floyd's cases going on, or how I'm filming this and another black man was just murdered by the police, and saying, oh, he got, we meant to tase him but got killed. Like, I do not understand how there's still people that saying all lives matter, or think, oh, the police was just doing their job. Like, if you still believe that you're racist, I'm sorry. I'm not going to get into this. This is about this book review. And so that's why I think it's an important read, because things still go on today. So not only do you learn about racism, because you learn about things like that you don't understand are racist, because that's just this how society is. So you were raised from a very young age and not even realize that, oh wait, that's racist. And it's also, you learn a lot about history, because history has been whitewashed a lot. So there are names and things that I wrote down that I'm looking into, because you don't really learn this in high school or college, and the things you've been taught are wrong. Not everything, but like, just, that's why you should do your own research and actually learn than just taking what happened in history class. The 4th book I read was Songs of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This is a retelling of the Greek myth of Achilles and Patroclus. I gave this like a 4.5 5-star rating. I absolutely loved this book. I listened it to an audiobook, and I just loved it. And I love Greek mythology, any mythology I'm so fascinated by, and so I really liked this take. So I'm pretty sure everyone has heard of Achilles, and so you go in there knowing things, so then when you get to know these characters, you're kind of like, oh shit, because you know. And usually I do not like romance, but I loved this book. I loved the romance. I just loved everything about it. It was so beautiful. I've never heard of Patroclus, and so when I started reading it, I was like, I should look him up. And I got very sad, because if you know, you know. But, I mean, I don't think it's a spoiler, because this is Greek mythology. It's been around, but I don't want to give away too much. So I think if you really like Greek mythology, I think you should read this book, because it does have, like, the real events of mythology in it, and characters, and it really puts her, and she puts her own spin to it, and so I just loved it. I highly recommend this book. And the last book I read in March was The Other People by C.J. Tudor. This is a mystery thriller novel about Gabe, who was driving home one day, and he sees in front of him his daughter, and like she screams like "Daddy," and like, so he goes chasing her, like chasing the car, because he doesn't know what's going on. But then he's like, is it her? Is it not her? So he eventually stops chasing the car and calls home. And there he finds out that his wife and daughter were killed. And so it's been 3 years and he still drives down the highway trying to find this car because he just doesn't believe that his daughter could be dead when he saw her. But the police and everyone do not believe him. I gave this a 3-star rating. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. I was really hooked in the beginning. It was like, oh my god, what's going on? But then it kind of like fizzled out in the middle because a lot of things were happening and you're trying to like, okay, connect things and seeing like, okay, what's the twist? What's gonna happen? And so when everything was revealed, I was disappointed but also intrigued because I was disappointed because it wasn't the way I was expecting, but it was still interesting. I just wish it was more disturbing because I've read Chalkman by her and I loved that book. And so I was hoping it would have the same kind of like vibe and reveal as that one, but it wasn't. So that's why I was a little disappointed, but it's still a good book. I would recommend it for like mystery thriller fans. For me, it wasn't like a great mystery thriller book, but it was still good. And so I will continue reading this author. I recently bought her other book, Birding Girls. So those are all the books I read in the month of March. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Bye!